It's 5 o'clock Pacific time on the West Coast. So welcome everybody to the May 2024 Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel user group meetup. We have the Power BI track today. We're very fortunate to be joined by Michael, who's going to present Power BI Git integration, a live demo. Never seen before. Have you given this presentation before?
I have actually.
Okay, so we're gonna get a nice polished version then.
Yes.
It's gonna be great. I'm really looking forward to this. Just before we jump into the presentation, a few housekeeping notes. A little bit of agenda for today. So we're going to do a little bit of welcome and overview now. And then we're going to get into what's new in Power BI, which I will be presenting as well. I'll probably keep that brief-ish because I'm excited to get to the feature presentation as well, which will start at roughly 5:20. And then we have an hour up there, Michael, but take as long as you need to get through. Just before I jump in, a special thanks to our sponsors, SkillWave, Learn Better Faster at SkillWave Training, Excel Guru, and Monkey Tools. So the session today will be recorded, as always, and it will be up on the SkillWave YouTube channel, usually within, I think Ken usually says a couple of days, and he's usually really fast, and it's by tomorrow. So I won't overpromise and put additional pressure on him, but it'll usually be up in a few days. For our next meetup groups coming up for the Excel track is next. It's on June 6th, so coming up quite quickly. And note the earlier start time. We're starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Jacob Nielsen's going to be presenting how to speed up your Excel filters with a list slicer. So that's going to be a good one. And on the Power BI track, 2 weeks after, on June 20th, another early start time at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Gregor's going to be presenting Measure Killer 2.0. I have to admit, I'm not exactly sure what that presentation is about, but it is a great title. So I'm intrigued and I'm excited to see what it's about. Ken's also been putting up some new Monkey Tool videos up on YouTube. So I know that he's covered in a few different Power BI sessions his Monkey Tools Excel and BI add-in, which can help you boost your productivity. And he's been putting up, I think, 3 videos a day for the last couple weeks. It's been crazy amount of content. They've all been great. And the featured episodes from recently are have to do with the topics of Smart Folder Monkey, Measure Table Monkey, Calendar Monkey, and a parameter table and function. So you can subscribe to the playlist by clicking the link here, and these slides will be available at the meetup group for this session as well. Rebecca's uploaded a PDF version of the slides, so you can check out the link there to see the Monkey Tools video series playlist. And of course, you can also download Monkey Tools at the link below. So Ken obviously usually hosts the meetup group. He usually does what I'm doing right now, but he is teaching his Excel Fundamentals Bootcamp for a private client and wasn't able to make it today. And speaking of his Excel Fundamentals Bootcamp, he also has another kickoff of his Excel Fundamentals Bootcamp on June 12th, so just coming up in a couple of weeks. This is a great course. I've been through a version of this. I know it's probably new, revamped, and improved several times since I went through the version I did. And registration includes full year access to 30 hours of training and coaching, recorded versions of the Ask Ken sessions, 46 hours of live Ask Ken sessions through the year, SkillWave discussion thought forum, and a whole bunch of great stuff. So I love this course. I think it's great. It's all encompassing, and I would definitely recommend to check it out. And as well as the Excel Fundamentals Bootcamp, it's also kicking off the Self-Service BI Academy. The new kickoff date's coming up on June 12th as well. And this covers even more. We have Excel, Power Query, Power BI together for Self-Service BI. And registration includes all of that great stuff up on the slides as well, which includes a digital copy of Master Your Data with Excel and Power BI. And something that I think is really cool is the Power Query recipe collections. They cover Power Query patterns that help you solve really common problems with data transformation and manipulation. And I know they've helped me when I've got stuck over the years, so it's definitely worth to check those out. I mentioned this earlier, but the meetup group presentation today is being recorded. It will go up on the SkillWave Training YouTube channel within a couple of days. And it's not just these sessions that are on the SkillWave channel. There's also content from Ken and Matt on all of the tools up there: Excel, Power BI, Power Query, DAX, and much more. So be sure to check out that channel. Yeah, I talked about the monkey shorts a little bit earlier. Last week's episode, enter data into multiple cells at once. This week, rounding tricks for Excel and DAX. You can check out the full playlist as well. And so that brings us to the last slide. Please, this is a little bit of a call to action. Get involved. If you or someone that you know have a topic you'd like to present with the group, whether that's in the Excel track or the Power BI track, and to be honest, it can also be a different tool or technology. I know I've done some things with like Python and R in both Excel and Power BI. So we've had Power Apps, we've had Power Automate. So anything sort of Excel, Power BI, or related tools. Please sign up, get in touch, fill out the form below, and we would love to have you. But with that, I think I am ready to move on and introduce myself to what's new in Power BI for this month. So I was fortunate this month that the May feature summary came out 2 days ago. So I've had a couple of days to look at these, to look at the new features and functionality in Power BI for this month. We often joke that it usually comes out the day of this session or even one day after. I don't usually get that many hours of preparation, but 2 days is pretty good. And whenever there's a new feature release, I always check out the Microsoft blog that gives a feature summary for what's new in Power BI for this month. So I'm just going to cover a handful of my favorite releases and features from this month. If you want to check out everything of what's new, as well as the Q&A sort of forum below the blog post, I would definitely recommend to check out this blog post. I'm going to focus most of what's my favorite features in this first section here, in this reporting section, where we have some updates to existing functionality, I would say, as well as some general availability of some features that I've covered in previous months of what's new in Power BI. But the first one I want to look at is that the modern tooltip in Power BI is now on by default. So we have looked at this previously. We have been able to like toggle the modern tooltip on if we wanted to. It's been in preview, but now just by default, all our users are getting this modern tooltip. And we can see an image in the blog post. It looks a little bit like this, rather than that old gray box that was like one line and didn't really give you much information. Or if you stacked additional fields in the tooltip, you'd get lots of lines in this gray box. We have a nice modern sort of UX design. It's nice and clean. We have some actions at the bottom, and we have some nice clear information at the top there. And there was actually a dedicated blog post to this from the Power BI Core Visuals team. It gives a feature overview of the modern visual tooltip in Power BI. You can see we have the action tooltip, menus, sub-menus, all sorts of things going on. And what I really like about these dedicated blog posts to specific features is that they've started to give a little bit more of a roadmap to specific features. Previously, we've had roadmaps for Power BI as a sort of all-encompassing tool, but now we have a more detailed roadmap of individual features as well. So down here at the bottom, we can see what the roadmap is. There's in bullet form, modernizing tooltip value controls, and on. So to have a look at what this actually looks like in Power BI, I'll just hop into my demo report. And if I click on this visual in the top left-hand corner here, we can see that I've added total tooltip measure onto the tooltips well in our build pane. Let's collapse this down. And if I hover over a point in our line, we get all of that information. We can see values for each of the individual lines that appear in our visual. We can see the time period that it corresponds to, our tooltip measure, as well as our y-axis measure, and then the ability to drill up or down based on the date hierarchy that's in our x-axis. So I can like drill up directly from the tooltip, and I can drill back down. So yeah, as we've seen, there's a roadmap for tooltips to become even better, to add more functionality. So something to keep an eye on in the coming months, and I'm sure I'll be coming back to this in future sessions. If I hop back to the blog post, my next favorite feature from this month that I want to cover are matrix layouts, and this one I am really excited about. The matrix visual and the table visual, I'd say, in Power BI, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with. They end up in a lot of Power BI reports, and I know particularly for like financial reporting or any dashboards that we make for finance functions within an organization, we're generally going to end up having a matrix visual. And what I like about this month is that it's starting to look more like pivot tables in Excel. And this is coming from different types of layouts we're now able to control what that looks like in Power BI. So if I just go into Excel, we can see that I was playing around with 3D maps. We can see that we have a basic pivot table here. We have some information on the rows. And if I click on our pivot table and I go to pivot table design, in this top left-hand corner, we have report layout. So I can show our pivot table in compact form, and I hope it can make a connection to the external. Here we go. In compact form, where we see all of the different fields we have in our rows are all contained within the same column, but we have this sort of like drill down waterfall effect where we can see latitude, longitude, relative altitude. And if I go back to design, I'm going to show in outline form. Rather than compact, we can see that now each of those columns are in their individual columns. So we have one column for latitude, one for longitude, one for altitude, but each of the values within those columns are on their own line. So whereas these were all sort of in the same column before, now they're spread out amongst multiple columns, but they've been on different rows. And the one that I like using, and I probably use the most, is tabular form. And this is where we have each of our columns have their own individual column within the pivot table, but all of the values of the column are on the same row for like a particular row in our matrix. And we also have the ability to do some other things. We have the ability to how we want to handle blank rows, toggle on subtotals, and grand totals. And this is what we're now able to do within Power BI. We haven't been able to do this before. So if I click on the matrix visual in the bottom right-hand corner here and pull up the format pane, now we have layout and styles preset. Under this layout drop-down, we've had compact, and this has been the default behavior for the matrix visual up to now. I can drill down from client type to, I think, client age. But if I, actually, let's open a few more. Here we go. And if I change this layout from compact to outline, we see that it looks exactly like how Excel looks. Now we have two different columns instead of those two fields being part of one column in our matrix visual. And I can also look at tabular as well, where now everything is on the same line. So this just gives us more control over how our matrix visual looks and feels. And what's great is that it actually brings the experience similar to what we may already be familiar and comfortable with in Excel. So similar to the modern tooltip, this also has its own dedicated blog page from the Power BI Core Visuals team. This gives a feature overview, outlines of the different layouts that I just covered, some additional functionality like handling blank rows, or if we want to repeat row headers or not. And then down at the summary, again, my favorite part of these dedicated blog posts is the roadmap. So we can see they started with matrix layouts, which is what I just demoed. And as we go down, we can see things that are going to come in the next couple months. So I'm really excited about this. Matrix visuals aren't my favorite visual, but I do end up including them in my reports quite a bit. So it's great that they're getting a little bit of love and sprucing up. Let's just cover Let's cover a few more. So for line updates, I covered these in more detail last month. There have been some additional updates to lines in our line and area charts this month. So I encourage you to read the blog post to see what improvements have been made from this month, even just from last month. And there have also been some updates to on-object interaction as well. So what on-object interaction is, I think I've covered this before, is you can double click on a visual in Power BI. And once I've done that, we're now in format mode. And I'm able, if I click on an element, like on the title, we see this pulls up the title card in the format pane. If I want to look at data labels, I can just click on those directly within the visual. And now the formatting options for data label pop up. Same thing for my axis or my axis title. And one thing that's nice is I can right click directly on the visual as well. And this pulls up these sort of shortcut formatting options, like I can just reset everything to the default, I can add a zoom slider, or I can format the axis values, as well as just being able to change the font size, some of the styling, and stuff like that too. So this has been available in Power BI for a little bit now, but recently, if you look at the blog post, they've released this functionality for small multiples, waterfall, and matrix visual. So now, just with more visuals, we can do that type of on-object interaction. The last thing that I will get to just before I pass it over to Michael is announcing the general availability of the DAX query view. So this is really cool. It's been in preview for a while now. I have demoed this, but we have a fourth view in Power BI. This came out a few months ago now, whereas before we've had the report view, the data view, and the model view. Now we have a DAX query view, and this allows us to define queries in DAX that we can run against the data set in our Power BI report. They can get more and more complicated. Previously, the only way to do this was to use like a third-party tool like DAX Studio, connect it to our Power BI or our analysis services or Excel data model, and then we could query using DAX in tools like DAX Studio. But now we can do it natively within Power BI, and it's generally available now. So all users, when they download Power BI and start using it with reporting, will see this DAX query view. And it's just nice that it makes using DAX it really just integrates it more in the tool now. I'd say it's not something that you just need to type in with the formula bar. It's really becoming more integrated. It's easier to use DAX, and DAX is such a powerful part of Power BI. It's great that it's becoming even closer and easier to use DAX. We don't have to leave and go to other tools. We can do it all within Power BI. But with that, that was sort of my quick fire, rapid round updates of what my favorite features of what's new in Power BI for this month. With that, I've done enough talking between the intro and the what's new. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If I can find the controls, let's do that. And I'm going to pass it over to Michael for the feature presentation. So Michael, the floor is yours. As I said, I'll monitor the chat for you, but welcome and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Joseph. And I learned a lot already from the What's New session. You know, I wasn't even thinking that I was going to get a lot from it. Like I was thinking more about the title of the session. So I'm sure you helped me already. Nobody's
Awesome.
going to get out of this session feeling like, oh, okay, I didn't learn anything, even if they didn't get anything from my part. So I'll share my screen.
Okay.
And are you able to help me confirm that my slide is up? Okay. So thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. So in case you're just joining and you're not aware of my answer to Joseph's question about how the session should go, I'm happy for you to ask me any question as I present. So, and as long as I am able to cope, we keep with that. But if it's going to break too much the flow of what I've planned, then maybe I'll adjust my preference. So for now, I'm happy you ask me any question. And today I'm going to walk us through Git integration in Power BI. So it's for version control. Sometimes people they find it a bit difficult to, those who are not coming from a developer background, they don't understand what the title of my session mean, but it's more of you trying to keep versions. Some of us do this using in companies. We probably try to use SharePoint to keep different versions and connect Power BI to SharePoint to kind of like upload the PBI file into Power BI. Sometimes people save multiple copies in different folders, or maybe append a date to a Power BI file to create a versioning. So we already do it. If you use Excel, that concept of saving the same file with different name, append some things to the name, usually dates, is the same concept that a lot of people take into Power BI, and if you're simply doing version control in one form. But now we can do it the proper way, and I'm going to attempt to do a live demo. If you feel some of what I'm saying, I'm using some terms that I should break down in a simpler way, please let me know. And if you feel I'm trying to dumb it down too much and I should use the standard terms, also let me know, okay? All right, so the title is Power BI Git Integration, a live demo. And I just wanted to mention that I published a book this year. It was fully out end of February. So I'm still in that phase of trying to create publicity towards it. So you can always check it out if you feel this is something you're interested in learning about. It's the Excel that we all know, but I try to focus on the ability to create dashboards within Excel using Microsoft Excel 3. They're using the new 365 tools within it, especially dynamic arrays and icons and Power Pivot and Power Query. So if you are not fully grounded in those tools, then you might find my book on this book useful. Okay. If I get the permission, I can share you in the chat the link to check it out. Okay, and all right. Previously, by the way, I didn't have a slide on my intro or what I do, but I'm currently Power BI consultant, but I also do Excel and I do financial modeling. So any of you needs to do a referral for me for any of those roles, yeah, that's what I do. Previously, we Power BI developers have never been able to effectively collaborate, have the equivalent of what software developers have been enjoying for, I'm tempted to say, decades. And so what do I mean? I have a very good example. One of the large clients that I currently consult for, I work with a team and beginning to fictionalize things. So what I'm saying now might not be entirely, correct 100% as to what it is, but just to emphasize what I want to say. So say we are 4 in the team and we all work on sometimes different Power BI reports, some other times on the same Power BI report, but different aspects of the report, right? It is 21 this year. Thanks, Eric. Okay, so back to my analogy. So we are 4 developers. We all work in the same team, sometimes different Power BI reports, and occasionally we are working on same report but different pages, different segments within the report. So before now, it's been really difficult. So we already understand that now Power BI allows us to have I think it's one of the first native features within Power BI to have workspaces. And workspaces is to allow collaboration, right? So there's a workspace, and then we all have access to it. And then I don't know if you remember, but then you have different roles. You've got contributors, you've got there's the owner for sure. There will be viewers. There's one other fourth one I hardly always remember, but Power BI has always tried to create like a collaborative environment within itself. So that helps. And now we've got the deployment pipeline, the ability to push a report into the equivalent of a dev environment. And then the developers can test, they can do a lot of more idea-based things without worrying that the users are going to be accessing what is in the dev. And then after some user criteria are met, user acceptance criteria, whatever it is that the report should have are met, then they push it to the test environment, or you could call it UAT environment, whatever names. Actually, Power BI allows you to change the default name. The default names are dev, test, and production. So I hope we are familiar with that deployment pipeline. I can show you maybe in my environment if you're not. So you'll see that in some ways, Power BI has been trying to make it similar to the way software developers build their software, where they all are able to have a dev environment, a pre-prod, a test environment, and then eventually a production environment. So what has been missing, if you ask me, is that there has never been a true CI/CD with Power BI, which means I work on something. It's almost the same way or we do like a shared Excel file. I work on something, I put it maybe in a share folder, you're able to access it, and then you maybe do something else on top of it. We try our best not to change at the same time, and one of us have to publish the final copy before it becomes becomes something that lands in the Power BI dashboard, workspace. So with CI/CD, it's a process where we can work on them differently. I don't need to worry too much about, what you're doing, what I'm doing. All I have to do is I make sure that I'm using Git. So I'm going to bring Git into the conversation, something that helps me to keep track of what I'm doing, what helps all of us that have access to the same resources, especially deployment environment, to now keep track of what is happening. And then if I publish, depending on the rules we set, it could be that whatever I publish needs to be approved by someone else. And it could be that for the developer environment, all of us can publish directly there. And then maybe for the AI environment, there can be rules. You set the pull request and someone else is going to review what we've done. So it allows for peer review. That's been something that has been missing. Everyone can easily publish into a workspace, but now we can put in the ability for peer review. I'm putting a comment to explain whatever I have done so you can see like a history. So to move away from this slide, the summary of what I'm painting is the true, software industry standard collaboration between developers has never been possible in Power BI until now. Okay. So what are the tools that now make this possible? So now we have CI/CD. We can do proper version control, proper collaboration as developers. And right now, too, we could even set up deployment pipelines. When I say deployment pipelines, not just the one that comes with the workspace, but even the one that is DevOps based, where rules are set, and then based on, you could have a DevOps engineer who can now oversee what gets moved into a Power BI production workspace. So up until now, no DevOps engineers have ever been involved in a Power BI workspace deployment. Let me put it that way. Okay, I hope I'm not speaking things that are difficult to catch by us all, but again, I have to say the right thing. So in summary, I'm going to walk us through the tools that the window I'm using does not have my screen annotation. So I hope you see my mouse. So there's a Power BI on the upper left. Then we've got Azure Repo. So that's the tool that allows us to do the real version control. Okay, great. And then I recommend that you use Visual Studio Code. So that's the lower left tool here. So Visual Studio Code will make things a lot easier for you. There's a tight integration between Visual Studio Code and Azure Repo. So Azure Repo is the DevOps tool that we're going to use. For now, that's the only tool you can use anyway. Maybe later Microsoft is going to let it be possible that you can use GitHub or some other tool to do the actual DevOps to manage the versioning. But for now, it's just Azure repo. I will show us how to access it. So you already have Power BI. That's why we are all here. Visual Studio Code, you can download it. There's nothing to it. There's no, this particular one, the Azure repo, I will show you how to access it. For me, this Git in Power BI was the reason I needed to set up mine. Before now, I've always been using GitHub. So maybe it's for you to, this might be your first time you're setting up Azure repo. So I'll walk us through that part. Then there's this optional fourth tool, which is the GitHub desktop. So when I was doing this at first, I found it kind of easy and less needing for me to write a Git line, command line. But the good thing is with Visual Studio Code 2, I later found out I could do all of what I was enjoying, the GUI part, the clicking through without having to memorize Git commands. So you might be able to just use the Power BI, Azure repo, and the Visual Studio Code and not need to use the GitHub desktop. So it's optional in this case. But when I was starting out with this, I found it useful. At least it helped me to not worry about having to write Git commands. Okay. So with these 3 tools, an optional fourth one, we can do proper CI/CD. And I'm going to demonstrate it now. So I'm going to come back to this slide. This is the part where I'm supposed to show you what is happening underneath. But first of all, let's see this work. Let's see this in action. So I'm going to exit out of the slide. I'll start from what we are familiar with. So I'm going to pull up the Power BI report. Okay. So I've got here a Power BI report. I hope this is not too tiny. I think I know what I should do. Okay, yeah, great. It's not too tiny. I wanted to increase my computer zoom size. I'm using a wide monitor, and if you think it's too tiny, just comment and I will increase my computer zoom level. So this is a Power BI report. There's nothing fancy about it. It's using AdventureWorks. I've pulled in a few tables, people, and sales-related data. I've created a simple-looking chart. I mean, 2 simple-looking charts. So it's not too complex, and it's also easy for me to use it to demonstrate what is happening. So it's fully functional. So now this report is done, right? I'm going to delete some things because I have to do some testing before the session so that I don't get any unplanned surprises. So I'm going to delete this. Let me show you what I'm deleting. I've got a duplicate report, right? I'm going to delete it. Delete. I've also got, you see this 2010 here, right? I'm going to also, it's coming from a date table. So you see, I'm going to adjust it, but I'm not going to adjust it within Power BI, okay? So I'm going to do all of this. But then I want to show you the power of this Git. So what I will do is, in fact, I'm going to ignore what I've done. Don't save, close, and go to Power BI, all right? And I'm going to do those changes right within the Power BI service environment, Power BI service. So I'm now on the report page because I've got an access level to this workspace that allows me to edit things. I can go into the edit mode, okay? And so I'm now in the edit mode. I delete this, okay? So this that I have done, how do I make it reflect in the local copy that I have in the local PBI? I've closed the entire PBI. In the PBI that is on my computer, the local copy, how do I make it reflect? So I'm going to show you how that is possible. So I save this. I go back to the reading view. And in fact, I go back to the workspace itself. So I've got just one workspace, Fabric workspace. I can see source control. and I can see that it's showing that I've got an update that is just in this place, but is not yet pushed to the repo. So I'll say, okay, I deleted duplicate sales report page. And I'm going to select what I want to commit. You can see the terminology that used with Git. So now this that I've done, where is it going to go? Okay. If I go to my workspace settings, you will see that in workspace settings, there's this new Git integration menu. I've already connected it. I will try to do everything from scratch, but I want to whet your appetite. I want you to see the beautiful part first. And then when we're doing the slightly boring part, you will understand why I needed to do that, okay? And hopefully I'll keep your attention span. So I've done that part. It's not difficult to do, but I will disconnect and try to do it later. So I've already connected these to my, it's the Azure repo. You are not seeing it here exactly that way, but it's the Azure repo. So this Azure repo that I'm talking about, what is it, right? If you go to dev.azure, sometimes I don't remember the exact link to use, so I sometimes just go to dev.azure.com. Let me show you all the errors I make. So normally I know it is on a dev.azure.com URL, okay? I'm just lucky that it brought me here. Sometimes it doesn't bring me here. It will take me to Azure portal. So when it takes me to Azure portal, what I do next is I do what you see already pop up in my, if you notice, you will see that I had this one here too. And then I make sure I pick the one that takes me to, that is, I know is going to take me to Azure DevOps. So in case this happens to you, then this is one of the ways I overcome that. And then when I'm in, I try to bookmark the page, so I bookmark it as my Azure DevOps. Okay, I'm going to do all of this from scratch again, but trying to walk backwards to let you see what is happening. So this is what I connected with it. Remember I said Azure repo. This is the Azure repo. This is what I have it connected to. So you'll notice that this is that report. So when I did that commit, it went here. It pushed all of what the changes I've made. It pushed them here into this repo. Okay. If I go to history, you will see the one I just did and the other things I was doing as a test, so that I don't. At least I make the most of the time we are together today. I'm not trying to do things for the first time again after some weeks. So now you understand what is happening here, I hope. So these two are connected. And then how is this going to push it down to my local file? That's the next question. So I have Visual Studio. And again, I will do all of this from scratch, so no worries. And I've already set up the environment. If I go to the source control side of it and I do a refresh, if I tell it to fetch, see, so it's fetched and showed me that, there's a change on the master branch, on the main branch that is not yet reflected here in my local, on the repo, remote repo. So I'm now going to tell it to sync the changes, okay? So that is now done. Okay, so the next question is, or what I want you to see is, I'm going to open that particular Power BI file, and you saw the original state. You saw it had two report pages. What else? Okay, that's the first thing we're gonna do. So when I open it now, I should see that other page gone, right? It should be reflecting the change that I've made here. Okay, so I'm going to show you that. I'll go to the folder where this is the webinar folder. Okay, so I will go into this. You'll notice that we've got something interesting in terms of the Power BI file, which this is what we are used to. It's also got now a solutions folder, and I can go into the report folder. I can click on the definition.pbi.har, and it will open the Power BI report. Remember, I said I'm going to do all of this from scratch, right? So just follow along. I'm going to, it always tells me to refresh. I'll explain why this happens, but I'm going to refresh. But you can notice already that the duplicate report is gone. I've got just one, right? Okay, so now you've seen how you make a change on the PBI service, and that your change syncs right back to your local PC. So every one of us that we are connected to the Azure repo, whenever we sync, we do the same thing you saw me do. We're all going to have the same version, and it will reflect what is on the Power BI service, right? Okay, so that is established. I'm going to make a change here, and I want the change to show up there, show up in the Power BI service without me hitting publish. So I'm never going to be doing publish anymore. Okay, so let's try that. I'm going to change something simple. This starts from 2010, right? So I go to the date table, and I'm going to modify, or let's do something more interesting so that I can do this one in another environment. I'm going to do something more interesting. I'm going to add a visual that is not yet here, squeeze out a space for it. I'm going to copy this, paste it one more time, put it here. For now, I don't care about the import, I don't care too much about the value in what I'm doing. It's just a demo. So I'm going to switch this to tree map. Okay, so I've made a change here, right? This change that I've made, I want it to reflect in the Power BI service without me hitting publish, okay? Without me hitting the publish button. So let's see. All I need to do is save. So for now, I won't upgrade to this so that I don't do anything that is different from what you probably would do right now. So I'm saving. Okay. And I'm going to close this so that you will see that I'm not hitting publish, right? So how am I going to push that change up? You will notice something. You see that the Visual Studio has detected the Git, the source control part of it has detected that I've made changes. Okay. And I'm going to commit the change and say I added a tree map. Okay. And I'm going to sync the change. I'm going to push it up to the remote repo. Okay. So that is done. So if I go to the history, I should see that this is now here. So you can see this is the middleman. This is in between the Power BI service and all local copies, right? So all I need to do is go back here, give it some seconds, or I trigger a hard refresh, and you will see that it will pop up as there are two changes that are in the repo that are not yet reflecting in the Power BI service. So I'm going to say update all, so that it syncs up the changes also here. And good. If I go to this report, we should see the tree map. So number one takeaway is that the publish button becomes useless. We probably will use it once anyway, and you can decide not to use it, but I think you will use it once, and afterwards you will not need to use it again. Okay, so now you've seen, without me hitting the publish, I've been able to push a change from my local straight to the Power BI service. Okay, so that's the second thing I want you to see. The third thing is right within here. I will explain the structure later, but I can also come in here to make changes. I will explain there are some things Microsoft has, said you should not edit here for now, and there are some that you can edit for now. There's the documentation which I will try to walk us through at the end so that you get to understand how things work, but I can try to show you things that we are not supposed to edit for now. So see, you see during this preview, if this file does not support external editing, so be careful not to just edit everything you can access here. But model.bim is one of the files we can edit. So I'm going to try to do something here. I will look for the formula that handles the date. Okay, so this is that date formula. I'm going to change it from 2010 to, it should start from 2011. And the effect should be that when I'm here, I'm no longer going to see 2010. By the way, 2010 does not have data. So this is the original meaningful state of the report. So this is going to be useful. I'm going to go back here. So I've changed it to 2011. I will hit save. If I go to the source control part of the Visual Studio Code, it will detect that there's a change. I'm going to commit the change. So removed 2010 from the calendar, from the date table. I removed 2010 from the date table. So now I'm going to sync it back to the remote repo, right? So what I'm demonstrating now is ability to even make the changes right within the files themselves, the source code, not from the Power BI desktop, the GUI tool. So now that I've done this, as usual, if I refresh this, you will see that it's come up here, right? So this is always the middle guy. And then if I refresh here, it will light up that there's a change in the repo that is not yet reflecting here. I'm going to sync and say, okay, update the copy we have here. So updating. Okay, so that's done. And if I open these, we should see that there's no more 2010. Okay. So you've seen the good, like the sweet part. Let's start from scratch. So what does starting from scratch mean? I'm going to go here. I'm going to delete this workspace. At least now, if anything breaks, you understand that. Like if I get stuck anywhere, you understand that it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. Like at least you've seen the good part. So let's see. So I'm going to delete the workspace settings. I didn't realize this part. Is it always here? I do the delete, yes. Remove this workspace. So empty, no more workspaces, right? Good. I'm also going to go here and empty this. This part is usually tricky. You know what? I will create a new one. So it always wants me to have one repo. So that's what makes this part not as easy as what I did there. If I try to delete this fabric, let's see, I wouldn't see the option to delete. I've tried this before and it makes sense because there has to be one, at least one. So what I'll do is I'll create another one and then, let's see. Okay, no problem. I'm going to just create another project. New project, demo, private. So private, because if you're working for an organization, you don't want it to be public anyway. So create. Okay, so now I've got one more. I think now I should be able to delete this one. It's now to look for the delete button. That's the. Otherwise, if it's taking too much time, I'll just leave it. Let's see. I always struggle to find where that is. view. Add the project description.
So I think if you click on do you want to delete just the repo, or what are you looking to do?
The project, I want to delete Fabric itself.
Oh,
so
okay.
Now I've got 3. I struggled like this too when I was doing it the last time, but if it's too much, if I'm not getting it, I will just leave that part and use the demo one. I just want to make sure I'm using an empty project. Let me just try one more time and just look for where the delete button is. It's in one very funny place. I found it when I was project. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. So I will use demo in that case. So we'll create another workspace, call it demo, and since it's empty, so that will work also for what I want to demonstrate. Okay, so now I have that. Then the report itself, I don't think I need to delete the report, because if I try to build a new one from scratch now, it's going to take time. So what I have done is I have the original PBI copy. So I'm going to delete this, because it's in use, it will not delete. So I'm going to have to close this, close, then delete this. So it's gone. So we can say this is clean slate, right? I open this. Oh, someone is helping me with a, let's see, maybe this will work. Thanks, Joseph. I think you've shared the, let's see if I see the, yeah, I want to delete project. Yeah, organizational settings. I know it's in one very, yeah, see, it's always difficult for me to find. So
yes, sorry, didn't mean to derail anything.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So let's try that, because if that works, nice. If it works, then see project settings. That's why I didn't see it, because I'm always looking up, for the menu settings, and this is one of those menus that is at the bottom left. So great. I want to delete Fabric. Okay, so project settings. Then let's quickly project delete. Okay.
I think it's in the previous screen. If you go to the top of, if you go to like MHS Analytics rather than select the project, and it's under organization settings. Yeah.
Oh, better. Thanks. So here, then I go to project. I think that was what I saw in that screen there. Organization settings. Oh, great. Thanks. Project here. This is it. Oh, perfect.
Don't make it easy to find.
I struggled with it also when I was doing a rehearsal for one of the last demo I did. So in my mind, it just didn't occur to me that I'm going to need to do that today. But I find that it's easier when I show people everything from scratch. That way, I don't leave them guessing. Okay, so now we could say I can't delete this last one. Let me try it, but I know the last time I tried to, it said I should always need to. Okay. Maybe I did something wrong the other time. I know it didn't let me delete all the projects, said I must have a default project. Okay, so this is good. So this is blank. Everything is now blank, right? So let's start with, this is the report I want to publish, right? So first of all is, I need to go to Power BI service. I need to create a workspace. So I can't do this in my, let's even go home. Okay, so everything is empty right now. Yeah, good. So I need to create, first of all, a workspace. So that's where we start from. I go to new workspace, and I'm going to call it Fabric, because I intend to use this workspace to do a lot of other non-Power BI things related to Fabric. So I'm going to call it Fabric. I won't care about putting a description, but here it's important. You need to pick a fabric capacity. So I've got a trial. I've got a 42 days left trial period. So you need to pick a fabric capacity. You can't use a pro. You can't use any of the conventional Power BI capacity. It has to be a fabric capacity. So that's number one. That's the only thing that is super important here. Any other thing you do, it's based on your own preference, you know. But this is non-optional. You have to pick a fabric capacity. So I do apply. So once I do that, we need to go to workspace setting. Then I will see integration. So you will see that here it is empty. It's not set up, right? So when I showed you the other time, it was already set up. Now you can see what it will look like for the first time. This is a new workspace. So this is the interesting thing. It will always detect, based on this, your account, your email account, it will detect what organization you have access to in this place, in this Azure DevOps. So it's one of two things. Either, I think by default, if you have already a Power BI account, somehow you will instantly have an Azure account, because the identity, the Microsoft Entra is managed. Like if you need to change anything on that level, you need to log into Azure portal. So by default, you have an Azure account. What I don't remember is if by default you will have these DevOps account. I think you don't, because you have to set up an organization. So yes, you will not have these by default, but I cannot try to demo that. I don't want to delete my company name. So this part is easy. It's just you signing up. So it will detect that you have an email that is linked to Azure, but you have to set up an organization. So that part is straightforward. But for me to complete this setup, right? Even if I pick an organization, there is no project, right? I need to create a project. So I'm going to use Fabric. Okay. I'm going to say it's a private project. I leave this as this, but I think you can switch. But when I read the recommendation, if you're not the Git expert, basic is the recommended option to pick here. So I say create project. So what this does is going to create a project with all of those menus, all these DevOps tools. So you will see the Azure board, repo, pipeline, test plan, which you can also use pipeline to manage the deployment. So you can use a pipeline to create proper deployment pipeline process, that there will be a PR and there will be automated way to move from Power BI directly into different environments. So I won't show up to that stage today, but at least what I've demoed, I can show. So first of all, this is what I said we are using. We're using the repo. Okay, so I'm going to initialize the repo. You need to do this for it to initialize a branch. Right now, this repo has no branch. So we need at least a branch, right? I'm going to use main branch. So I will just leave it as main branch and say initialize. All right, so with this now, I can go back here to complete the setup. I might not see anything yet, but if I refresh and I go back to the workspace settings, then now I will see the project I've created, and I can pick the repo that I've created, and I can pick that main branch. This is optional. If you want everything to go into a dedicated folder, this is the explanation of a folder. I can come in here and add a new folder. If I want everything I do to go to that folder, then I will have created it here and then indicate it. That's the way I think it works, except maybe it allows you to also put a folder and it will auto create it. But the result is that it will push everything you commit, it will go into that folder. So that can help for if you have many workspaces and you want them to be all organized by folder. In my case, I have got just that one workspace, so I'm not going to worry about that. Another thing I need to mention is, for some of you, it might not detect your organization. Okay, I will show you what to do. So if your region, my region is, I think, set to Canada here and also here. So I am not getting that problem. But sometimes, I think in one of my first demo, while I was using my previous company account, I had that problem. It was not detecting anything here. And then it was because of region. So I will show you in case you encounter that problem. You will need to go to settings. You will need to go to your, I usually mix things up here. Let's see. Power BI settings. No. Admin portal, yeah. So you need to go to admin portal. So you go to admin portal. I'm going to search for region, cross region. That's the fastest way, cross region. Okay, maybe I'll just start for region. So there's a setting that relates to I'm going to search here, region. Okay, great. See, so there's a setting that relates to Git integration, and do you want it to be able to pick from that one? I think it's not enabled by default, because when I had that problem, this was what I needed to do on that previous company account. So I needed to enable that. I needed to, connect between different geographical regions. Like my repo does not need to be in the same geographical region as my Power BI tenant. So that fixed that. So in case you come across that issue, that's how you resolve it. That's the only issue I've ever faced in the different times I've had to set this up, like again and again. So back here, this is it. So once you've done this, that's like the major work actually. So from now on, all of what I showed will become visible. I didn't tell you before, but this is now visible. Before I did that, this button was not there. Now it's going to pop up and I will always see this. And you already know what happens when you push something here that was not there before. This lights up with a number. Okay, so I'm going to publish this report. This report is the typical way of we creating a report. I build it as a PBIX file, right? So if I hit come here and I hit publish and save, yes, and I pick the so for some weird reason it doesn't show me select. It should be a select here. No idea why. It doesn't even show me cancel here. But if I do escape, I save, I close. That's the good thing with testing my demo. I don't know, maybe I installed a buggy version of Power BI. But once I open it again, it pops up. No idea why. So I'm going to do publish again, and I pick the workspace. I pick, okay, now this is becoming persistent. Escape.
Hey Michael, it's Win. There's a preview feature that you need to turn off. There's a bug currently.
Now it's showing. See, it's showing now, and I didn't have to do anything different. Weird. So it's the more features they're adding to PBI now, some funny things are beginning to happen. But thankfully, now I see it. If not that it happened to me yesterday, I'm going to be like freaked out now. I'll be like, okay, why is this happening? Okay, good. So I've done the initial publish, and I believe this should be the only publish you will ever need to do, So once I close this, now you will see all of what I mentioned. The fact that if I go in here, it will show that I've got 2 changes that are not, here. And that's true. There's nothing here. Everything here is really still empty, right? So all I have to do, as you already know, is for me to just commit this and say, okay, initial publish. Okay. And I pick all of them, I commit. So now you see how what I did before, how I had done this setup before those things could work. So now we are back to what I started demoing, right? And so at this point, I will go back to the slide to show you the slide. Yeah, to show you the structure of the folder. Oh, before I go there, I need to show you one more thing. So I still have the PBI file, right? So how do I do the local copy that will always be synced with this repo? So that's the advantage of having Visual Studio Code. You can always come here to do clone, So if I click on clone, yes, I can get the line, the URL to use to go set it up, and I can also see that it can clone in Visual Studio Code. So that's the advantage of Visual Studio Code. I don't need to do a more complicated process. I click on clone in Visual Studio Code, and then it will immediately launch VS Code. It will ask me what folder do I want to clone the repo in. I'm going to go to Vancouver PUG. I'll create a folder. I'll call it Fabric. And then I select that folder, set it as my destination. I'll say, yes, open the new work environment. And so now I will have the folder structure. So this brings me to my slide on the folder structure. So there are two solution folders that it will create by default. It will create a dataset folder and a report folder. The dataset, as the name says, will have all the source files for all things dataset related, right? This is the super important one, which holds the model data. And then there will be some JSON and this PBI dataset, okay? Typically, most your reports will have these 4, and then it can have more. So I'll show you the more that they can have. And then for the report folder, you will always have the definition.pbir. This is what we launch the solution. So from now on, when I want to open it on my local, I'll go to click on this. That way it will always open the version that is connected to the repo. And then it will have, it's a folder called static resources where you keep things like logo, almost like if you do web design, there's always an asset folder that holds your static assets like media assets. So this is the equivalent, logo, anything external that is like copy paste or import into the Power BI. Okay. Then I've lost my mouse pointer. Okay, great. Then you've got the item, there's some JSON files and report JSON. So I'm going to talk a bit about them, but before I resume that, these are those folders. Okay. Then there's a third one. If I go here, so now I have, these are those 2 folders, right? Then there's a third one. There's the git.ignore anyway, so it's going to come up later. So right now it's not yet showing up, but I have something to say about that later. So I'm going to also mention that from now on, I'm able to use the source control within Visual Studio Code. You already saw me use this, okay? So this is why I said that you might not need to use this 4th component, because the more configure we use Visual Studio Code, it's enough. You don't have to, and it's very straightforward. You would typically be fetching. If you feel before you start work, you fetch to see if there's anything new. And if you wanted to do a periodic fetch, you can. I don't know the implication yet, so that's why I'm not turning it on. I'm always careful turning things that will work by itself on. So that's why I have not yet clicked yet. But if you don't want to always remember that, you just pick this yes option. So you fetch to get what's new. You can change the branches. If you want to check out to a different branch, it will show you all the branches that are there. So these are things that are just Git specific. So that's why I don't want to spend much time on them. So let's go back to the Power BI specific things. Okay. So I'm going to go to a web page that I've prepared for us that explains all the files that you will have and the folder and the files that are there. Okay. So remember, there's the data set. Let's start with the data set. So data set. Great. So this is the data set folder. It's already renamed there to be semantic model. I'm guessing very soon too, this will begin to reflect. Okay, yes, also renamed here. That means it is my slide. I need to update. I need to update my slide so I still have the old name here. Okay, that's good to know. So let's go back here. Right. So this is the most comprehensive place to explain the different files. In the one I showed you, And the one we've got just 4, but there are possibly like the number that you can have are about 6. You can have up to 6 different types of files within the semantic model folder. Okay, so I will explain the ones I know very well and the things I wanted to keep in mind. So this is super important. This is where you're able to go in and see all of the Joseph, how many minutes more do I have so that I know how to compress this part? Since this part I'm just walking people through.
You're good. I think we're okay. I don't think there's a time limit.
Okay, great. So this model.bim file, if you have used Tabular Editor before, then you're familiar with this, right? Because that's also what Tabular Editor allows you to edit. So it's the same, it's the thing that holds in a JSON format. I think this is JSON format. I hope I'm correct. All of the artifacts of your data set. So you could rename things, you could change things here, and they will reflect in the Power BI report. And that was where I came to change the formula here. So you saw the effect, right? So yes, this is that one. It's important. And then there is also, there's this one. So this catch.abf. Let me see. No, mine don't yet have it here, but I'd say if I make a change, let's do that. If I make a change, exit this, exit this, this, right? I'm going to close this. Don't save, and open it from the full solution folder. So solution folder, definition of PBIR. So when I open it for the first time, it's going to force me to do a refresh because right now there's no data set within this my solution folder. There's no data set. There's no data set. Okay, what we have is just this. The data set is that catch.abf, this one. So right now I don't have it. And what that means is everything looks empty, except text stuff, right? So I need to now do a refresh now for it to pull in the data set or to create the data, pull in the data and create the data. Anyway, it does both. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Let me upgrade. Please, if anything breaks, it's not going to affect the demo you already saw, the part I needed you to see. So now you can see something happening. I've got that folder now, and now I have that catch.abf. So this is the data. You see the file size is bigger than every other thing. Everything else is usually in KB. So I've got people ask me, oh, if my report is, 400 megabytes, will I have to push that 400 megabytes back and forth between via the source control? The answer is no. And how is the answer no? Now I think you should see the Git ignore. Great. So I was trying to mention this before. Now it's showing. If I open this, can you see that that catch.abf is part of the list of files that Git ignore, expressly is indicating that it will not go with the whole version syncing. So that way, you can have a file, you can have a PBI report that is maybe even a gigabyte size big. But because the database, which is always the thing that is the biggest part of it, the data set itself, the data, encapsulated in this ABF, catch.abf, is not pushed through the version control. So it does not slow things down. It does not begin to balloon your file sizes within the Azure repo because it will not push this through. So every time you do a push through, you will have to sync I mean, you will have to manually update the data here for the data to reflect. And similarly to when I go here on the PBI service, every time I do that too, it will refresh the semantic model and pull the data directly from source. So that's one thing I want you to be aware of. So let's go back here. So this is the second important part here. I've mentioned this. Okay, so I can just mention these ones in passing. Local settings are if you have made any settings. Remember what I said, this is meant for collaboration. Maybe I have a default theme I'm using. I've set some things in my options here that are local to just my, to this particular current file. But these are settings that are, if I made some settings that are supposed to be just local to my own instance of PBI, they will be saved here. They will be saved here. And they will never be part of what gets pushed, via the version control, so that my own savings, my own personal, local settings preference will not override my colleagues. So if I go back to the git ignore folder, we should find that git ignore file. We should find that there, see? Okay, so that's another thing to take note of. Editor setting, these are settings that as you will see, it's not in the git ignore. So those ones will get pushed. And so I'm going to focus on what I know are super important. You can always read this. I'll put this in the chat. Okay. Then I'll move to the one for the report. So that's so this is the one for the report. For the report, again, using that approach of super important, this is super important. You can see this file is required. And what it does is this is effectively now your Power BI report file. Anytime you want to open it, this is what you click on. It's a 1 KB file, but it's just like when you want to launch this program on your computer and you go click on a 1 KB shortcut file and it launches the program. So this is it. This is what triggers the solution to open. So this is that, super important. And then another one that is important is two more. So there's this report JSON. So you can see it's also one of the really important one. It will always be done. So it shows all the visuals you've used and things that are regarding your report layout, how you set things up. And I think you can edit it. Yeah, you're not supposed to manually edit it. Okay. Then another important one is the custom visual one, this one. So custom visual, you might think it's all custom visuals. No, it is only this. It is the custom visuals that you import. You can actually import the PBI VIX. Yeah, PBI VIX package. Those are the only ones that show up within this folder. Every other custom visual you use will just be included in the metadata. Like if you had used from the app source, these are actually the app stores, just like this is your organizational store, and then this is the Microsoft-wide store. So anything used from here will not create a custom visual folder. It's only when you use one that you imported, a PBI VIX package, that will create a custom visual folder. So there's that one. And again, I think this is also another important one. It allows you to set, custom themes and logos. I usually mix it up with so yes, custom themes, images, logo. Yes, great. So it allows you to set it. So for me personally, those are the ones that I try to always mention as common candidates for one to go through and make changes to. So now that we understand the structure, if you go back here, you will see that that's what is happening. So we've got the folders, we've got the git ignore, which I've shown. You've got the folder that reflects the model, and then I've already mentioned these, and then you've got the super important one. Where's that? Where's the beam file? Oh, okay. Because now I upgraded it, so it's no longer Beam. It's now showing as TMDL. So this is the new. Now I see the change that happened when I upgraded it. All right. So now I don't know how to explain this because right now this is the first time I'm using this approach. I was always using the Beam one. So I guess this breaks things down more. This is better because I can tap through the different source files that I've used. So this is much better. This is really much better. So it allows one to go straight to what to edit. So it shows us the Power Query. What this for me of this is something table data language TMDL. I usually forget the full meaning. No. I know it's table definition something language. All right. But for some weird reason, yeah, it's showing me things related to power. Tabular model definition language. Yeah. So I think I am done. I'm happy to take any questions. You all know what happens from now on. I make change here. Let's see. Let's just duplicate this. I save it. Okay, so I see a question from Aurora. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct. Apologies, my my English pronunciation of many things is different from how you do. So I see your question. Can you mention what licenses are costs are to be considered? Yes. So for Fabric, there's a cost, and at first the minimum cost was something that was prohibitive, and they changed the licensing, and now I think for $200 and something per month, you can have a license. Apart from the fact that, like I am doing, you can use a trial version, for 60 days. But after that, so this is the smallest. There's a place where it shows what it kinds of comes to per month, because I don't think they let you pay you have to pay on a per month kind of way. Let's see, month, yes. Yeah, so see. 262. So this is the smallest capacity you can purchase. And I don't know too much about, I think it's more than enough for what I'm doing. But, Fabric allows you to access other products, data warehouse. So you see here, I'm able to access a whole of other things, data engineering, data science, data warehouse, and all of that. So if you use a lot of the other things, it might not be enough that license, but I know for this, if this is the key thing you want to use, for sure, that's even more than enough. If they allow a $10 per month license, I think that will even suffice too. And that's in USD. Yes. I think so. Let me just verify. Yeah, it's in USD. Okay. And so there's this thing we believe that the cheapest is West US2. So let me check if that applies. In Azure, when I'm setting up an Azure stuff, I always go between West US2 and East US2, and kind of people have done this analysis that they are the cheapest region, but I don't think it applies here. Or maybe since Microsoft is already saying this, and did they say this is an estimate? Okay, so it doesn't apply here then. Okay, good to know that it doesn't matter which region you pick for a particular country. I think it's the same. Let's see if I pick UK. Oh, you guys are richer in UK, so they're bidding you more. Let's pick Australia. Okay. I don't know how they do the pricing, between the countries, but I can see that it's not the same. Even Canada pays a lot more. Someone said India pays the least for Azure. In this case, they are not paying the least. Any other question? Okay, so I was just going to demonstrate that, I do this, I save it without needing to publish. I just go here, I push the changes, made some changes. I actually duplicated the report anyway. I commit it, then I sync it to push to the remote repo, and then I go to the remote repo, if I check the history, I should see what I've done. See, it's showing now. And if I go here and I refresh, it's going to light up with there's something that has changed that is not yet reflecting here. And then I update all. And then once this is done and I open the report, I should see I should see the report with all the changes I've done. So I see the duplicates, right? Okay. So any other questions? What you recommend doing changes related to teaming via Power BI desktop or code editor? So interesting. There are two approaches to teams. So I've had cases where, as a consultant, I am always needing to align the chart with the company's team. And because as a consultant, I'm always working for different clients, I can't just, go in here and do a permanent, I can't just go in here and just like permanently or be doing for every single client, customizing and creating, going to team gallery, like going here and creating a customized team for every single person here. It's a lot of work if you need to do it for different, almost like every report I'm creating, I'm doing this. So people say in that case, you will want to use the code way. So someone built a tool that allows you to, Power BI team generator. Yeah. So some people have built tools to allow you to create, to like dynamically just, I think this is popular, this BIBX. So they allow you to pick the stuff, do it in a faster way, and it creates the code, and then you can now go use the code or save and import as a template, and it will bring it in. So now if you use these tools, then you don't have to do complex ways of bringing them in. You can just use the code directly and go replace, the part of this that controls it, which, like we saw the other time, it's under report, and I think it was registered something. Yeah, static resources, yes, registered. No, it wasn't this. It was this, yeah. Now I'm getting confused, but now I can go here and change where it is. Let me just go verify again which one it was that holds the team details. I think it was something. So in the meantime, any other question? I think it was report JSON.
There is another question in the chat, Michael. Okay. Asking, can you demonstrate the CI/CD ADO pipeline? So I think Azure pipelines and YAML file configuration to enable auto deployment, or do you have any great resources on that topic?
Okay. If I try to demo it, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. It will ruin the recording, right? So this is the document I'm following. So I will share it because this is what I'm also following to do it. So this is the one that. So you need to. Why I have not finished it is that it involves you installing. I'll show you the part I've done it up to. That at least I can help you on the way. So there is a part where you need to install an app. Where do I get that app from? This was not the browser I was using. So you need to install an app that will help you get out the YAML. There's a YAML template for the Power BI. So if I go to this is not it. I remember it's not this one. classic editor. This is this other one. So I needed to install an app. I want to show you what that app looks like. I didn't install it on this PC, so that's why, you can see I'm already getting, disorganized looking for the particular step you take. Fortunately, because I didn't do it on this PC, I'm not able even to go through my history to find it. Let me just give you one more try. Otherwise, you can just, this is the document I'm following actually. Let me type it. Fortunately, I get better results when I search on Google search. So let me just use this Power BI YAML pipeline app. Yeah, this is it. So you need to install this extension to your tenant. It installs on, but I clicked on it. What just happened? Let me click on it directly. Install Power BI extension. How to install? Add Power BI. Yeah, this is it. So you need to install this. So I have not done that. So I do that. It's installed within your tenant. So I think you have to be the admin of the tenant for you to complete this process. So this helps you to get the template YAML so that by the time you're trying to do the pipeline creation, you will see that template as part of the options you can pick. The same way when you're trying to do the setup for maybe like a Linux-based, a Windows-based, like a Python-based program, it's got something that you can pick and click through. So I think this allows that. So once I do that, it installs for my organization. So now if I go back to my environment, I think in my YAML now, I will be able to see under pipelines, and I try to create a pipeline. So now this is where the problem starts. Like I'm going to be needing help. So the part, wait, no, I'm not doing an existing. So this part is where it's supposed to help me with it. I'm supposed to get a template that I'm to use. If you see in this demo, in this stuff here, it explains that I'm going to get a template for the following code applies. Okay, yeah, so I'm already here. Then copy paste this code from here. So I'm supposed to copy paste this code. So the truth is, this is also what you will follow because this is the most comprehensive guide on how to do it. I don't think there's any other documentation to walk one through. I was trying to do it, but I couldn't complete it. Then I looked at the time and I knew I was going to not be able to finish it. So I didn't bother trying to complete it on my own environment. I think it's recent. The last demo I did, this was not yet present. Let me check the date this was written. Oh, it's old. Okay, maybe I just didn't look hard enough. Okay. Any other questions? But with this, you can see that you can do a proper, pipeline within the DevOps. Any other questions?
There's no other questions in the chat at the moment. So I think you've answered all the questions that come in a very thorough demonstration. So I guess there's not a lot to question about it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks. Right, I don't know what the process is after now, but thank you, everyone. Thanks, Aurora. I see the clap. Thanks, Mary. No, thanks, Nava. Thanks, Adrian.
Okay, yeah, I can. I'm happy to wrap up the session if you're all done. So
okay, stop sharing my screen.
So once again, Michael, thank you very much for your presentation. I know you were very kind and said you learned a little bit from from my brief intro, and I certainly learned a lot from your presentation. So there's definitely some things there I'm excited to try and integrate and dive deeper into Power BI projects and the possibilities that opens. So thank you for your time. Thanks again to everyone for coming out for this month's Power BI track of the Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel user group. That wraps it up for today. I know I see a lot of comments coming in the chat how everyone enjoyed it and want to experiment as well. But we are done. So thank you everyone for joining us, and that's all for today. Signing off now, and hopefully see you at the next one. So goodbye everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Bye everyone.